Hey guys, today I want to talk about a really, really important concept, and that's free will. This one is really, really, really important to get right. It's a little bit confusing, and I think people trip themselves up with this whole, do we have free will, do we not have free will, determinism and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, really important, I think, to think about this correctly if you want to have some understanding of what you should do with your life. So, the first thing that we need to keep in mind, and I'm going to say this over and over and over, I'm going to sound like a broken record because it's the most important concept, and that is that everything is consciousness. Consciousness is the prime substrate of reality. Is there something beyond consciousness? At that point, you get into the via negativa of the, of the Latins. It's not even worth speculating about that at this point. But one thing that we can form some sort of conception of, as poor as it may be, is the infinite consciousness. That is the creator of everything that we experience. And one of the primary attributes of that consciousness is free will. It's just the way it is. It's in the nature of things. Why? I have no idea. You'd have to ask source consciousness. But free will is a really key fundamental property of reality. But free will is not a binary. It's not something that you either have or don't have. Everything is a continuum. Everything is some part, some level of the cascading hierarchy of consciousness that starts at the very top as source consciousness, and as it splits itself and it comes down into infinite facets, infinite races, infinite modes of being, it takes on different properties. And so when you think about free will, you have to think about it as a continuum. It's not something you either have or you don't. It's how much free will do you have about something at some point in time or in the form that you're in. And so you have to think about free will from the viewpoint of you right now as, the local consciousness, the local construct. And the reality is that you do have limited free will. You have free will, but it's not absolute. There's a lot of things you can't do. You can't, for example, just immediately snap your fingers and, teleport to another planet. Do you have that ability? I don't. I doubt any human does. But maybe there are beings that do. So everything depends on where you are in this hierarchy of consciousness and how far that you've developed. And it's really, really important, I think, to understand that this limitation of free will, it's not a negative thing. This is not a prison planet, and this is not a punishment. The limitation of free will is a tool. It's a tool for experience. The source consciousness splits itself. It fractures itself into infinite pieces. And in order to have this diversity of experience, and especially this vivid experience, the kind that we're going through now, limitations of free will are a really important part of that. So you right now, you need to understand, as best you can, and this is not, and I don't want anyone to think I'm no expert, if there is such a thing as enlightenment, I haven't achieved it, but I just, have some things that I've learned along the way. What you are right now is just one aspect of yourself. You need to think about yourself as being in a relationship with your higher self. And your higher self is a grander being. It is a more highly evolved being, let's say, higher in the hierarchy of consciousness than you are right here. But you are a portion of it. You are an aspect of your higher self. And your higher self has projected itself into this reality, into this physical world, into that body that you occupy now. And it has done so for the purpose of experience, to use you, not to use you, to work through you as the filtering process. You are your higher self, but you have just simply chosen to forget that part of yourself in order to be able to have the experiences that you're having now in a physical body, in this world, incarnate here on the surface of this planet. And part of that is limiting your free will. So I think it's more helpful to think of free will not as a thing that you either have or don't have. It's not a binary. It's a continuum. Think of it more as, at any point in your life, all the possibilities that are open to you at that moment. Like, what are the next things you could possibly do in the next second? That is going to be a very, very wide range of things, but it's not absolute. If you're sitting in a car, in the next moment, you can't all of a sudden be in an airplane flying around. So do you have free will or not? Well, yes, you do, but there's still some things that you can't do. So look at the possibilities of the next actions, the next thoughts, the next things that you can experience moment to moment. That possibility is vast, it's large, it's enormous, but it's not infinite. It is limited, and that limitation allows you to have certain experiences and allows you to force yourself to learn certain lessons. And I think that's a really key part. That's the usefulness of these limitations of free will, is that you can make yourself learn lessons that you may not really want to experience necessarily, but they are good for you. And that's one of the useful features of this physical world that we inhabit, is that you are subject to the natural laws that we find here in this universe. You must abide by the rules of this universe. But those rules provide an opportunity for a vivid type of experience, especially when you're a human and you can go through all the ups and downs of a human life. But for that to happen, you have to have a more limited free will. It cannot be perfect. Otherwise, you might not choose to experience any of the things that you're experiencing. You might spend all your time in some, idyllic, utopian environment, but ultimately that might not be what you need for your own growth. There's a lot of things that you go through that are going to be unpleasant, and you may not want to go through them initially when you're first experiencing them. But a lot of times, as you go through them, you realize that it was really helpful for you, and it was very, very useful. And I think that one of the things that, as you study more and as you gain some insights, you'll see that when you are out of this body, when you have transitioned out of this lifetime, and you are in, what we like to call the spirit realm, which is sort of like it's again a continuum of frequencies, but you are in this higher frequency beyond the astral, where you can go in between your lives. You have a lot more free will than you do now. You can create the environment around you. You can associate with whoever you want to associate with. And if there are people that you don't want to associate with, you don't have to. It's an infinite space. And so you can congregate with others. You can be alone. You can make whatever type of reality that you want. And that's a cool thing. I'm sure it's pretty awesome, but it might become stultifying over time. And you might limit your growth because, sometimes you need to associate with people that you don't necessarily want to. That provides friction. And that friction leads to growth. It leads to more understanding. It leads to a development of your state of consciousness, so that ultimately what we can do, together as a human race is improve this entire reality that we're experiencing, because there's much more to the universe than just living here and going to spirit realm and coming back and just repeating that cycle over and over and over. I'm sure that there's, spirit realm is an infinite place with many extremely high levels of consciousness you can reach there, let's say, and you can probably experience many incredible things. I've only caught little glimpses of things here and there, but you can read so much about the great mystics of the past, or even people in the modern era that have become really good at, let's say, astral travel, and they've approached very high levels of the astral, maybe even entered the spirit realm and things like that. And it's it sounds pretty awesome to me, but that's just for humans, and that's just one possibility of infinite possibilities. And there's a lot more out there in the universe. There's a lot more that we can experience outside of this recycling process of being born on this planet, going to this spirit realm, coming back, learning. And in order for us to grow, for you as an individual, and then for us as an entire race, these limitations that we take on when we come here in these physical bodies are a really important part of achieving that growth. That friction, it's like iron sharpens iron. You need to have those difficulties. You need that friction of being around people that you may not really enjoy being around. You're going to learn something from them. You have to go through these experiences that maybe aren't that great initially, but that's part of that's part of learning. And that's part of this growth process that we're all in. And in order for that to work, you need to have a limitation of free will. So the free will that you possess right now, as an embodied being, as a spirit inhabiting a physical body, it is limited. It's not absolutely true. But you do have it. That free will is there. So you do have choices to make. And the choices you make while you are incarnate and while you are here and embodied are absolutely critical for your growth. So you have to make, the right choices. And that's part of what we're here to do, is to make those right choices. So, it can be sometimes a little disheartening if you think about all the ways that you might be influenced, all the things that might be happening to you, the limitations that you go through. But, I think it's important to just remember that that's a tool, and that's something that you can use for your own growth. You can use it to catapult yourself, hopefully, maybe over many lifetimes, into higher states of consciousness. And ultimately, as we all do that, each of us at the individual level, and then all of us at the level of the entire human race, we will be able to reach the point where this the recycling process, this reincarnation, is no longer necessary, and we'll no longer need to lose our memories and need to experience so many limitations we experience, because we're going to have reached a higher level of consciousness. And that's really what we're all working towards. Whether you know it or not, that's what you're doing. And that's what we're all doing as a race. So it's a phase of growth. This is part of the development of any being. It's kind of like we're in our childhood, let's say. Childhood, you go through many different phases, and some of them are really useful for a period of time, and then you grow out of it. And I think, I hope, but I have a very, very strong belief that where we are right now as a human race is that we're getting ready to grow out of this. And I think those are some of the changes that we're going to start seeing in the coming years, is that we're going to see that there is another path and another possibility. Not all of us will be able to reach it right away, but it is going to be there, and more of us are going to be able to take it. And what that's going to do is it's going to dramatically increase the range of free will that we have available to us while we're incarnate. And one of the reasons I think it's so important to go through this growth process is that you can't just reach these high levels of consciousness without achieving some level of responsibility yourself. You have to be a responsible being to gain that power, let's say, because if the range of possibilities or the range of the future actions and thoughts you can take dramatically expands, you have to make responsible choices about that. Otherwise, you're going to run into trouble, or you're going to create things that may not be that great. So that's also part of the reason why there's a lot of wisdom in the way that the infinite creator has set up this process, is that you have to slowly develop the responsibility of a more highly evolved consciousness. You have to discipline your mind and learn to make the right choices with the free will that you have, in order to be granted more freedom, more opportunities to make more and more choices. And if you start to consistently make the right choices and guide your own development, then I think that you can start to make progress and achieve higher and higher states of consciousness. But if you make bad choices, then you probably have to, it's going to take longer for you to learn. So you're going to be given the freedom that you're capable of handling, basically at any point, and you give that to yourself. That is actually your limitation for yourself, that you have agreed to and you have taken on as part of this incarnation process that you've taken on. So I hope that helps a little bit. It's just my thoughts that I've collected over the years, and the conclusion I've reached over this very tricky subject. But I do think understanding free will is absolutely critical, because it's a really, really important and critical part of growth. And if you're not developing and growing, then you're sort of wasting your time. So may as well get it right. But thanks, guys. If you have any comments, feel free to drop them down below. Thanks.